Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, our guest is Adele Spraggon. Adele is an award-winning author, a thought leader, and an international speaker and trainer. She has been awarded 2020 Woman of Inspiration Award, and in 2021, she was recognized as the top behavioral expert of the year. Her book, Shift 4 Steps to Personal Empowerment, has won 3 awards and is sweeping the globe, transforming how people are setting and achieving their goals. After decades of feeling stuck in patterns of procrastination, avoidance, and quitting, all of which had her living her life below her fullest potential, Adele set out on a journey of discovery and learning. Her inquiry, why the personal and professional methodologies she was following did not work for her. The result is the creation of her proprietary 4-step repatterning technique, which she delivers through a member portal called the Pattern Maker Hub. Today, she supports thousands globally to achieve extraordinary levels of happiness, peace of mind, prosperity, goal achievement, and life fulfillment. So without further delay, sit back, plug your earphones in, and let's jump right into this episode with Adele. Welcome, Adele.
Thank you, Yannick. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Okay, so could you share a little bit about your journey? I know your bio kind of gives us the formal background of who you are, where you're coming from, what your journey is about, but we always like to hear from our guests in their own words a little bit about how they got to where they are today.
Yes, of course. My background is personal development. I've been in that field for over 35 years now. But Yannick, an interesting thing was happening in the first 15 or so years of those. I was a lead coach at one of the leading top personal development industry corporations. And at the same time, I was really, really struggling to achieve my goals. I had a terrible pattern of quitting. So I would quit things each and every time. And I also had a very high level of anxiety. And despite following all the personal development methodologies that I was teaching and had been taught, I stayed inside myself. So I really felt like an imposter, which many people feel. And so after I tried a whole bunch of stuff, and I tried everything from meditation to proper goal setting to everything under the sun, I finally woke up and I went, wait a minute, is this me? Am I the problem, or is the problem the methodologies that we're being taught? So I enrolled in university and I wanted to study how the human brain makes decisions and how the human equation works in comparison to what we're being taught. And sure enough, I discovered that much of the methodologies I was trying to follow went against how my brain was actually working. And it was causing a real conflict internally. So I created new operating instructions, and that's what I now teach. I teach how to change the brain's patterning, which is giving rise to our actions, behaviors, beliefs. And the results are tremendous. 87% of the people that I work with achieve their goals, and at the same time achieve extraordinary levels of happiness and peace of mind as well. So when we work with the brain as it's designed, it works beautifully to advance us in the direction we want to go.
Totally agree. And peace of mind is so important. So Adele, could you share with us how your brain is making decisions on your behalf and how to change your underlying decision-making patterns so that you can achieve any goal that you set for yourself?
Sure. An interesting development in neuroscience in the last 20, 30 years. Okay, so before that, we really lacked the modern brain scanners to peek inside the human brain in a non-invasive way. And so we didn't know much about our own brain and how it was working. And the findings are absolutely extraordinary. One recent study by John Dylan Haynes that was done in the early 2000s, he discovered that a brain scanner can see the decisions we're about to make a fraction of a second before we consciously know we are going to make that decision. Now, that's extraordinary when you think about it. So the subconscious regions of our brain are actually driving our decisions, not our choices in life. So, I like to say to people, like, do you want to know why your hand is in the cookie jar? It's not because you're choosing to take the cookie. It's because your brain has a pattern which is moving you in the direction of that cookie. And when we try and work with willpower and goal achievement and control, it really goes against the way that brain is working. So it's like, I like to say, so the train's left the station and now you're holding onto that caboose, trying to pull it back, right? Rather than reflecting on what you're doing and asking yourself, okay, does this work for me? Does it work that my hand's in the cookie jar? And if the answer is no, then let's change the pattern. Let's change where the decision is originating instead of fighting ourselves.
Amazing. Truly, truly amazing. Now, lots of people procrastinate. So, for example, even in school, you'd have an assignment to do and you literally wait until 2 days, a day before to start the assignment, because some people believe they work best under pressure. They push out their best work under pressure. But then let's say you got this assignment 3, 4, 6 weeks in advance. And instead of kind of just pressuring yourself like that, you could literally pace yourself in terms of the chunks of work that you do towards completing that assignment in a more manageable way, structured way, rather than, pressuring yourself within 24 hours. How do you change your brain to kind of, just reallocate how it is that you approach that activity?
Yeah, I love this. I love this idea of procrastination, because the brain doesn't actually procrastinate. It avoids. Okay. So there's a big difference. And what it is avoiding is actually the uncomfortable internal experience that comes about when we think about doing that assignment. So let's take that example that you just gave of a student in school and they're trying to write an essay. If they tune in and look at their own personal experience, they'll see that internally there is a lot of uncomfortable feelings going on and uncomfortable thoughts going on, such as I'm not good enough, or I don't know what to write, or I'm confused, and all of that stuff. And so it's that we actually avoid, and we keep putting it off, because we don't want to actually experience that, okay? What we need to know is that negative experience is driven by a pattern in our brain. And Unique, when we think about it, the human brain isn't born with patterns. Okay, so we enter this world pretty much a blank slate, and we very quickly have to form patterns. And when we first form a pattern, it works to get us through that situation, but then the brain simply stores it and holds on to it. So when you're 5, 6 years old and you first start school, highly likely that you weren't good enough at certain things, right? Highly likely that you did feel uncomfortable when you went to write an essay. You wouldn't be writing one at 6, but when you went to write your name on a piece of paper, you'd probably feel a little bit uncomfortable. And so it's the pattern that just keeps presenting itself every time we go through school, and that's why we keep avoiding. So what we do is we change the pattern. Once you change the pattern and upgrade it, then all of that avoidance, that need for avoidance, just melts away. And you actually start to enjoy the process of writing the essay. You start to enjoy the process of learning and studying, because every part of the human brain is actually trying to guide you to success. It's just a misunderstanding of how our brain works. So the only question we need to ask ourselves is, when I'm suffering internally, if you know that suffering is the result of a pattern that needs upgrading, then all you have to do is change the pattern, and boom, you're no longer procrastinating. You're no longer suffering. You're just at ease doing what you need to do.
That is so true. So true. And that's kind of where, I think most people want to get to at some point, right?
Yes, absolutely. And the brain is designed to do that. The brain has what is called plasticity. Mm-hmm. It is constantly attempting to rewire itself. It gets trapped in those old patterns just simply because that action to the brain feels safe. So even though it doesn't work for you to be procrastinating, even though it causes suffering, causes misery to be procrastinating, because that was the same action that the brain took yesterday, it will continue to rely on it, thinking that it is safe, because it is the unknown that the brain fears. Okay, so it would rather you suffer than be in the unknown. That's a funny little blip in our brain, maybe. But once we change the pattern and create a new known, then the brain just readily goes along with that new action.
Amazing. All right. Now, of course, our podcast is about navigating the customer experience. And we found over the years, just different persons that we've interviewed at different levels, as well as, from my own training sessions that we have, you can't deliver an amazing experience if it is that you are stressed. And I mean, the number one, I believe, cause why people have so many chronic illnesses globally is because of stress. Stress leads to, hypertension. Stress leads to diabetes. Stress leads to, people getting a stroke. I mean, so many different things that stress can lead to. So what do you think is the root cause for stress, anxiety, and overwhelm? And if you're looking, sorry.
No, go ahead.
If you're looking at your situations and you're looking in the wrong place, could the solution be found in our brain patterns, and how do we tap into that?
Yes, absolutely. I would say that the number one cause of stress is this. And when we think about how the brain works, this makes total sense. A long time ago, when the world was more simple than it is today, more predictable than it is today, the patterns that a brain created in its youth, so patterns are created primarily throughout our childhood. In adolescence is a massive other stage of pattern creation, and then it slows down into adulthood. In a world which is predictable and dependable, those patterns created when you're little would continue to work quite effectively all the way through your adulthood. Okay? Today, though, the world has sped up. And it's sped up to the point where those patterns created even 5 years ago, even last year. I mean, let's just think about this pandemic, right? The patterns that you created before the pandemic no longer navigate you through the pandemic, because the situations required by the pandemic are totally, totally different than who you were before. And so it's adaptability today that is absolutely essential. But when the brain is locked into those old patterns that it created in its youth and doesn't know how to change those patterns, like we haven't given it the tools to upgrade those patterns, then of course it's going to be stressful, because there's a misalignment between what action your brain is taking and the action that you need to be taking today. Make sense?
Yeah.
It's not that there's anything wrong with you. It's not that you can't function properly. It's not that you yourself is stressed. It's the pattern that is trying to take the action on your behalf is not actually in alignment with the action that needs to be taken, and hence a disconnect and hence conflict.
All right. A whole lot of stuff to really take into consideration as it relates to stress. Now, Adele, could you share with us what is the one online resource, tool, website, or app that you absolutely can't live without in your business?
Oh, today you'd have to say Zoom. I mean, I don't think that I could do my business. I used to be all live events, Unique. That was the only way that I would work. So I would do some online content, but mostly I would run full year live events, and we would rent rooms and do these big, huge events. I would sell from the stage. I did everything from the stage primarily. And then the pandemic hit, and boom, all of those live events went away overnight. You talk about need to be adaptable pretty quick. So that was like, whoa, things are changing now. So I had to embrace Zoom. So that's one of my must-have. The other one is Kajabi. So for me, when I put all my training onto an online platform, I use the Kajabi app, which is a training source. I can hold everything in there. So those are the two that I totally rely on today.
Amazing. All right. Okay. Now, we also like to ask our guests if you have maybe one or two books that you could recommend. It could be a book that you read recently or even one that you've read a very long time ago, but it's definitely still had a very big impact on you.
Well, I think, for me, some of the latest findings in neuroscience are very exciting. So if people really like to read and they're really interested in how the brain works, then Ian McGilchrist's book, The Master and His Emissary, is excellent. It dives into the difference between the brain hemispheres and how the right hemisphere is functioning different from the left hemisphere. For me, that's super exciting. Another one is Jill Bolte-Taylor. She is a neuroscientist who actually had a stroke in her left hemisphere and came back from that to talk about the difference between the hemispheres. And she's got a brand new book out too. I think it's called Whole Brain Experience, but you look it up, Jill Bolte-Taylor. So those two books, I highly recommend if people geek out on the brain like I do. Another great researcher for brain research is Andrew Newberg, Dr. Andrew Newberg, and he looks at the brain and enlightenment from the perspective of neuroscience. So again, anybody who likes to geek out on that, great author.
All right, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, we have a lot of listeners, Adele, who are business owners and managers who feel they have great products and services, but they lack the constantly motivated human capital. And if the people aren't motivated, of course, the quality of service is going to be diminished. If you are sitting across the table from that person, what's the one piece of advice that you would give them to have a successful business?
Yeah, great question. Okay, so motivation. Let's just look at these new operating instructions, as I was saying at the beginning of this podcast. The old operating instructions were this: set a goal and then determine the steps that you need to take to get to that goal. And it's all inside of striving. It's all inside of trying to figure out what is right, what you shouldn't do, what is wrong. And it creates a lot of stress and a lot of demotivation because internally it's creating so much conflict. So here are the new operating instructions. Set a goal. Instead of determining the steps to get there, ask yourself, what is preventing me from being there now? You will notice as you ask that question that a whole bunch of actions, behaviors, and beliefs bubble up to your mind. So you might say, oh, yeah, I should be picking up the phone and calling clients, but I'm not. So that's an action you're not taking. You want to write that down. You might notice, oh, yeah, like I really feel nervous when I talk to new clients. Great. Write that down. Your belief might be, oh, gosh, I'm really bugging people, like sales is slimy. I'm just making all of this up. But write down all of those things that are preventing you from being at that goal today. Imposter syndrome, that was one of my big ones. I was a big people pleaser. That was a big one for me that was stopping me. So you'll start to see yourself in a whole different light. All right, great. Under every single one of those actions, behaviors, and beliefs, know that there lies a brain pattern, which is giving rise to that action, behavior, belief. Your next step is not to try to fix that brain pattern. It is instead to remove it. And, Yannick, I'd love to gift all of anybody listening my book. They can get a free copy. All I ask is that they pay for shipping. In that book is the 4 steps to remove that brain pattern. Once that brain pattern is removed, your brain will do what every brain does. It will create a pattern. Excuse me, hang on, I just got a frog in my throat. It will create a brand new pattern. And that brand new pattern is going to take you automatically in the direction of that goal. That new pattern is going to take the action needed to take. Why? Because, like I said before, your brain is always striving to, always trying to get you into alignment with what is going on in this present moment. And if the success of your business depends on you taking that step, then your brain is going to create the pattern to take that step. You don't have to worry about that. Your job is to remove what doesn't work. Once you, I cannot tell you how effective this method is. It truly is something that every person needs to experience for themselves. It is not based inside of knowledge. It's based inside of experience. Once you experience it, though, it's like night and day. It's like, oh my gosh, bring it on, world. I don't care what the problem is. I know I can solve it because you've got a brilliant brain that can solve it on your behalf.
All right. Amazing. Okay. Well, Adele, can you also share with us what's the one thing that's going on in your life right now that you are really excited about? It could be something that you're working on to develop yourself or your people.
Well, I just started when the pandemic hit. I moved everything to an online platform and I started a membership site. And it is very exciting what's happening in that membership site. So there's lots of activity there and I keep adding new content. So that's my primary focus at the moment. I'm building out all the content that I used to teach in live events into an online platform, like Kajabi, and supporting those members.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry about that. So you said you started a membership site?
Yes. So I'm putting all the content in there. So there's lots of classes in there, which is really exciting, all around the brain and different things. So I have leadership classes in there, relationships, so people who are in conflict. I'm finding that a lot of people, probably because of the pandemic, are trapped inside of addiction patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working with people with addictions now, so there'll be a class on that. Peace of mind and stress, as you were saying before, that's a massive thing. So all of this content is going in there, and people are really finding, they're just loving it. Like the members in there, they're just really eating it up and really gaining valuable information and valuable tools and resources for today's very complex planet.
Yeah, so amazing. Okay, so our listeners would have tapped into this episode, Adele, and they're quite intrigued with your content. They're quite intrigued with your journey. They want to take up your opportunity that you've presented to purchase their book, to get the book and just pay for shipping. And they even want to take it a step further. They want to keep in touch with you, maybe join your membership hub that you started and just really follow you on your journey. Where can they find you online?
Yeah, so go to my website, adelespraggon.com. You talk about customer experience. I won the award for the Women's Inspiration Award was for customer experience. And I think it's because of how we've set up and structured our business. So first of all, it's a value first payment method. So if anybody wants to come into the hub and become a member, you get 30 days of free content. So that you can try it first and make sure that it's for you. Mm-hmm. Then we do everything on what is called the equitable payment plan. So we recognize that the wealth distribution on the planet today is not consistent. And so we have a value price for all of our offers. But if people cannot afford that, they must pay within their means. So there are drop-down menus and they just select the price point that fits their budget from there. So, if anybody wants to come on my website and check out your brain and the tools that are available there, you can join the hub for 30 days for free. All the content in there is free. Just take a look, check it out. At the end of the 30 days, you pay an equitable price based on your means.
I love it.
And the book, I should say. The book you can get at adelespraggon.com also. Just look under the store and it's free with shipping. And I will send you an autographed copy.
Awesome. All right. I hope I'm going to get mine too because I didn't get a copy.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Now, Adele, we always like to ask our guests right as we wrap up our conversations, do you have a quote or a saying that during times of adversity or challenge, you'll tend to revert to this quote? It kind of helps to maybe get you back on track or get you refocused if for any reason you got derailed.
I would say my quote is always, I created that. And I'll have to explain that one for you.
Sure.
So as I was saying before, patterns are created in our youth and they continue to inform us about the world today. But everything that we see about ourselves and about the world, about the situation, is driven by our pattern that was created in our youth. So when I find myself in a situation that doesn't work for me, I just gently remind myself of that. Oh yeah, that's a pattern. I created that. And that just helps me to position it. And then I can apply the 4-step technique that I teach in my book and remove the pattern.
All right. Love it. All right. Well, Adele, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule for hopping onto this podcast and sharing all of these great insights with us as it relates to, procrastination, stress, brain patterns, how to understand yourself a little bit better, to understand what role our brain plays in the process of us achieving our goals and really becoming that, success person that we all, I'm sure, strive to achieve. The knowledge that you shared with us today is priceless, and we just really appreciate you taking the time to have this quick chat with us.
Oh, happy to be here, Yannick. Thank you for having me.
All right. Just want to remind our listeners, please feel free to hop onto Facebook and join our private Facebook group, Navigating the Customer Experience, and follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant. We also have a new book available on Amazon, The ABCs of a Fantastic Customer Experience. It's available in ebook and paperback. So if you want to increase revenue in your organization, build a stronger service culture, and create employees or develop employees who are really mastering service delivery in your business, you need to grab a copy of this book. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.